Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The starter service of the Johannesburg Bus Rapid Transit System was finally launched at the end of August. Rea Vaya, as it is known, saw a tough first week of operations, facing a taxi strike, operational challenges and an incident of violence. With me in the studio is Irma Venter, who has been covering the phasing in of the BRT system as well as the taxi industry for several years. Irma, welcome to Second Take. The BRT system has been running for about a week now. How is it doing?
Well, maybe first just let's run through the system. It's got about 25 kilometers and just more than 20 stations. So what actually happens, you just stand on the station, you wait for a bus to arrive. It comes at a frequency of about 5 to 20 minutes. You simply get on the bus, it drives down to the next station about 750 meters or a kilometer down the road. It's a very safe system. It operates at a high frequency. It's a reliable system. You can just wait and the bus will show up. Of course, later when the system gets expanded, there will be more buses, the routes will be expanded, and the frequency will also increase. Of course, it will also run later into the night, literally unlocking the city's nightlife, which is an important part because your other modes of public transport actually stop at the end of the day at 7, 8 o'clock. No more buses, no more taxis. So that's a wonderful system to start with, safe, reliable, and you can trust it. Then, of course, this week now, we saw the operations kick in. It went pretty well. We saw about 16,000 users on Monday, but that was due to the taxi strike on Monday, so you saw commuters flock to the system to use it. So I think the system faced a heavy burden on Monday. Didn't quite anticipate that number of commuters showing up, so they kind of ran out of tickets, and they had really lots of pressure from commuters getting a bit impatient at the stations. The rest of the week, it seems to have settled at around 8,000 users a day now, which is, I think, pretty much what they anticipated. Of course, there's only 40 buses running at the moment out of a fleet, a first phase fleet of 143. So there is still a bit of pressure, but hopefully this will ease as more buses get introduced and as the talks with taxis, we hope, progress.
On Tuesday night, we saw an incident of violence when 2 passengers were wounded in a drive-by shooting from a taxi. What is the taxi industry's relationship with the BRT system?
It's a bit of a tense relationship. I think the first thing we must understand, the taxi industry is not, there's no a lot of cohesion in the taxi industry. There's a very, very competitive industry. So we have some taxi associations working with the Council of Johannesburg to operate the BRT system. They're literally negotiating at the moment. They will form a bus operating company. They will operate the Rea Vaya BRT system. The taxi drivers will become the bus drivers and the taxi operators will take a share of the profit. That's how it's supposed to work. But not all taxi associations form part of these negotiations. So it's a bit of a power struggle between them. I mean, even one of the taxi bosses said it is a power struggle and it's about money. Who's gonna control the BRT system? So that is what it is about. So we've, for example, the South African National Taxi Association, or the South African National Taxi Council actually, Santaku, they launched a bid just before the launch of the BRT to halt, ask for an interdict to stop the launch of the system. So they were dead set against it. They say it's going to take away job opportunities, it's going to take away their livelihood, and they say they don't understand the system. So it's pretty much a very tense situation at the moment between the taxis, but you can see national government is negotiating very, very firmly with the taxi industry to kind of bring a halt to this.
When Santaku, you said they say they don't understand the system. Can that be true?
Well, not true at all, because the Council of Johannesburg started negotiating with them in 2006 already. They had 32 workshops with the taxi industry to say, this is what BRT is, this is how it operates. They took the taxi bosses to South America to show them how a BRT system works. I mean, Santaku was included in this. They all went to South America on, and the city of Johannesburg footed the bill for this. And they took them to South America and said, this is how a BRT system works. So to say that they don't understand how it works, that is not true. In my personal opinion, this is definitely just about money and power. Who's going to control the BRT system? This is what it all boils down to. Of course, we have to applaud the taxi associations that are actually working with the city council to say, we're going to be part of this new public transport system. We want to provide a decent public transport system to the people of Johannesburg, and we want to form part of the BRT system. We have to applaud them. But then we have to seriously ask about the members of the taxi industry that are actually not willing to work with government on this. I mean, there's a lot of evidence simply about the taxi industry working against government and just simply not willing to change. I mean, in 1999, we launched the Taxi Recapitalization Project. This was to renew the fleet of taxis in South Africa, so they were unseen, they were unsafe, and they weren't really fit to use anymore. So what happened now, they're supposed to buy new taxis, government's supposed to give them 55,000 Rand to help them insist to buy a new taxi. Only 30,000 out of a fleet of 90,000 taxis have been changed already. It's 10 years on. It's not happened. I mean, I don't think government has acted strongly enough against the taxi industry to say you must do this. I don't think taxi industry has used the chance and the opportunity to recapitalize, to become a more streamlined, more efficient public transport system. Minimum wage has not been introduced until very recently. A lot of them have simply not paid tax until very recently. And we also have to consider that 90,000 is the official number of taxis in South Africa. Deputy Minister of Transport Jeremy Cronin said the figure of taxis could be as high as 350,000. And then, of course, 90,000 would be legal taxis, and the rest, they're probably illegal taxis. So you have this industry that really needs to change. They really need to become part of the mainstream system, and they really need to become more efficient public transport operators that people can trust. Don't leave when you're full, but leave at a specific time that a commuter can trust that I can get to work on time. So we have to do this, but of course it's very difficult for government to negotiate with the taxi industry. If, for example, Metrorail says we don't want to do something or we're going to strike, government can say, I subsidize you 67 cents out of the Rand. You will do this. Government is not subsidizing the taxi industry at all. They have no power over the taxi industry. They left them alone for years to operate as they will. So how do you actually now force the taxi industry to do anything that you want? So that is also part of the problem.
Well, government say it's in constant talks with the taxi industry, but what will happen if those negotiations with the taxi industry fail?
Well, government has acted really strongly in this instance of the BRT, I have to admit. I mean, you mentioned the shooting. The government sent in 350 troops and policemen to that hostel where the attackers fled to, and to try and catch those guys. They're escorting every Rea Vaya bus with it's got a police escort on the bus and in front of the bus. But that, of course, is not a sustainable situation because you can't keep this up. So government is actually putting its foot down, which is a good thing. But now, we have other BRT systems that have to roll out in Port Elizabeth, in Cape Town and in Durban. If we fail in Rea Vaya, if government fails to introduce this system, it will never happen in these other cities. I mean, this is the big challenge for government. If you want to implement a public transport system that works in the country, it has to happen in Johannesburg, and it has to succeed. It's very important that it succeed, especially ahead of 2010 World Cup. I mean, Port Elizabeth has already said we can't do it ahead of 2010. The taxi industry is just so much strong opposition from the taxi industry. We're giving up. We're saying we're going to do it after 2010.
And the other cities?
The other cities they're continuing. Cape Town is continuing, but they're also facing strong opposition from the taxi industry. So that's why I say Rea Vaya is first. Rea Vaya is setting the example. If it doesn't work, these other cities, the chances are they won't succeed in these other cities. The government has to make an example of Johannesburg and say, this is how we do it, this is how we implement it, we will make it succeed, that the other cities can flow behind Rea Vaya and just say, okay, this is the example, we're also going to introduce our systems now. So it's very important for public transport in South Africa that this succeeds.
Irma, thank you very much, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Pleasure.
That's the Second Take show for today. Thank you for watching, and join us again next week for more news analysis.